So, hello. I have another beautiful Black woman in business with me today, and I'm going to let her introduce herself to you and tell you a little bit about her business. Welcome.
Thank, thank you. It is such an honor to be here with you. I am Diamond Drip, and I am a soul having a human experience, as many of us are.
Yes.
And so, what I do in my business is I help other souls navigate this incarnation that we're all here living as humans. Each one of us has a specific way that we're meant to use our gifts that we chose in this lifetime. And that's what I help people do. I help them live as their true selves, not the selves that they were conditioned to be because their friends or their family or society said that they should be a certain way.
Okay, that's remarkable. I love that. That's very enlightening and inspirational. I think that we should all think about ourselves more as spirits having a human experience as opposed to being fully physically human and just a little spirit somewhere in there that we wake up every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you say inspired you in your childhood to do what you're doing now?
Ooh, in my childhood,
Yes.
um, entrepreneurship was something that I kind of dove into after I lost my job as the general manager of a gym. I I guess in my childhood, it did prepare me for this moment, but I wouldn't say that it inspired it.
Okay.
My mom is undiagnosed borderline personality disorder with narcissistic tendencies, and I say undiagnosed um, because of her shadows, I had to do a lot of my own healing in therapy, and so I've had many therapists over time, and I feel like if 3 out of 4 therapists agree on a diagnosis, then it's probably it's probably true. And so just being under the control and the shadow side, just being affected by her shadows, it really prepared me for the work that I'm doing now, for sure.
Beautiful, beautiful. So how long have you been doing your business?
Yes. So I started my entrepreneurial journey 4 years ago in
Oh,
2019. That was when I lost the job that I just general manager.
okay.
And so it was it was a path. I remember hearing one of your other guests saying, like, I didn't really know where I wanted to start. And for me, I don't just start things. So I did do like a little bit, like what do I want to, like what's lighting me up at the time? And so the first business that I ever started was a product-based business.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, I was pursuing my visual communications degree and with a concentration in graphic design. And that was what inspired me to start my second and now current business, which is Diamond Drip Consulting. And in both businesses, I was doing a lot of shooting myself into things.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't until August of 2022 that I really gained the clarity and the insight that I needed for my person of like what mattered because I realized that I was doing a lot. Pursuing the degree, being a business owner of 2 businesses. Oh yeah, and I'm a mom. So
Uh-huh.
so I participated in a clinical trial that actually helped heal my depression in August of 2022. And it really made me see clearly. I like to say that it was the catalyst for my spiritual journey. I just didn't know it at the time. We rarely
Okay.
do because we're
Right.
so in the mess of everything that we
Right.
rarely know, like this is the catalyst moment. But when we
Right.
say hindsight is 2020, so looking back, it was 100%. And so now the work that I'm doing, it was an evolution of shedding fears. Even in when I transitioned to fully being in Diamond Drip Consulting, and being online, like a coach online, I chose business coaching because I was scared to kind of do what I'm doing now. I really knew that I
Right.
wanted to be like a life coach of some sort,
Uh-huh.
but I was in my head, I was like, I can say, like, if you don't know anything about AI, getting visible with video, using like the tech tools, in 6 months, you will know those things. But when I thought about life coaching and how I would want to coach people, it was like, I can't guarantee that in six
Uh-huh.
months you'll feel not depressed. Like, I can't guarantee that. And so out of fear, I resulted to business coaching. And that forced me to honestly face a lot of my shadows. That was when a lot of my unworthiness started to come out, like the feelings of like you have to prove yourself. And
Yes.
I'm in a coaching program currently, and he nailed it beautifully what I was experiencing during this whole branding myself as a business coach. You have to go through the journey that you're
Mm,
trying to lead people on. And
mm.
so at the time, I felt like I was floundering a little bit because I was starting something new. I had business experience, but not in this. And so here I am feeling like a fraud because I'm trying to help people build these successful businesses when I feel like my business isn't a success. And now,
Yes.
and now that I've kind of let go of like the business coaching side and really stepped into my purpose of what I'm here to do in this lifetime, I don't feel that imposter syndrome anymore because I
Uh-huh.
have actually been through the mud of this
Uh-huh.
whole personal development, spiritual growth piece. And I can honestly say that I'm in a good spot. I have, right? We all have, they call it a journey for a reason.
Yes, yes.
So we're all on our journeys. And that was something that I even recently realized because we all have this idea in our mind of where we want to be. And when we get there, that's when we'll really step out. And it's like, that's always going to change. Like there's always going to be
Next
another,
level.
like,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So if you wait until you're there, like you're never going to get there.
So much wisdom you just shared with us. I mean, so I just want to put bullet points on like 10 things that you said. So I'm just going to recap a couple of things so our
Okay.
audience can let it settle within them. One of the things you said was shoulding, like doing things that you think you should do because of opinions of others, because of how others feel about certain things and the ideas they put out there and the conversations they've had with you. And so, shooting is living within a comfort zone of the boxes people put around us, right? So we're living to someone else's expectation. What will make me look good in their eyes? What can they accept me doing and be proud of me for? What can I discuss with them that I'm doing and it makes sense to them, right? And I don't feel weird and strange and like I'm doing something totally new. So that's shooting, audience. So think about if you are shooting through your life, if you're just doing things you think you should do or you've heard you should do, versus stopping to tap into your own spirit and asking yourself, what do I feel? What feels real? What feels most fulfilling to me? What really feels true to me? No matter how weird it may sound if I say it to someone else, let me just say it to myself and see how it feels to me. That's the challenge. That's one of the largest challenges you will face in life is being able to be true to yourself as opposed to wanting to appear a certain way to other people. So those are two bullet points that Diamond dropped for us. Another one she dropped was as she was going through the process of starting her businesses, right? From shooting to have it be a business focused on things that she could explain, in 6 months concretely, this would change to a business where she had to experience the change herself before she could be able to offer it to others. Because a lot of times we think that going through that process is failing. Like we have to be perfect. We have to be 100% before we can help anyone. That's what our thought process is. How dare I say I'm going to help you with your journey, and I'm not really totally clear on mine or doing mine 100% all the time. I'm going taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Well, that's life. And being she discussed being attentive to that process and realizing I'm growing through this. So when I see you and I hear you talk about what you're going through, I can relate because I just went through that. I can help you because I can tell you you're going to come out on the other side, right? And that is so much more valuable to anyone trying to get through something, to have someone who's been through it than to have someone who's just talking from theories. You know, maybe they have a degree, maybe they've written a book, but they haven't really experienced it. So, but to experience it means you're going to have all those feelings, the good ones, the bad ones, the ugly ones. You're going to have them. So, just more bullet points she
I
drops
love those
for
bullet
us.
points.
I just love it. I love it. So keep going, keep going. So let me see what I can ask you because you're just giving us so much good information. What do you feel? I'm looking at where you are now in your journey and having kind of tapped into your gifts, you know, the true gifts of you. What would you say is your superpower or your superpowers?
Um, well, human design helps me know all of them. And so I've been in, when you start to embrace your human design, they call it the experiment because it's different than what we've been taught and
Yes.
conditioned to believe is the right way. So the founder of human design always calls it the experiment. So since being in the experiment, I understand some of my gifts a lot more. Like one of my gifts is that I'm an investigator researcher. So
Mm.
I love me a good rabbit hole. 100% of information I am
I can relate to
constantly
that too. I
learning.
do too. I
Yeah,
don't mind spending the time investigating and researching and getting the details and
yeah,
yes.
yes. So I love a good rabbit hole and it pairs well. So in human design, we have profiles. There are 12 of them, and I'm a 5-1. And so the 5 means that you're a solutions person, especially practical solutions. And you have this aura field that like extends beyond you. And so what can happen is people place projections on you. I always
Mm.
love using the grocery store example or like Target, where
Uh-huh.
you're just, you know, minding your business shopping, and then someone will come up to you and be like, do you know where this is? And I'm like, no, I'm not wearing a red shirt. I don't know. This is like my first time in the store. Not every projection is correct for you, but your aura kind of just leaks that you have these solutions. And
Ah.
so it pairs really well with the 1, which, as I said, is the investigator, because I do have solutions, just
Uh-huh.
not every single one.
Right.
So that's a gift. Even my emotional authority. There are 7 different authorities in human design, and the trial that I participated in, it tested the efficacy of psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, in individuals with bipolar 2 disorder. And so for the audience who doesn't know the distinction between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2,
Uh-huh.
bipolar 1 is what you think of when you say, oh, well, I don't know if people are still saying this, hopefully not, but like, oh, you're bipolar because like you're hot, then you're cold, you have these
Uh-huh.
extreme highs and you have these extreme lows. So that's typically what people think about with bipolar disorder, but that's bipolar 1. And that's what they
Okay.
call mania, is when you're in those like really high waves. So you can think of it as like high and then a little low and then high and then a little
Uh-huh.
low.
Okay.
Bipolar 2 is kind of the opposite. Your lows are really low. And then you come up
Ah.
for a little bit for what's called hypomania. And then you go right back down to the low, low,
Okay.
low. And
Mm.
so in the the thick of my depression, I remember being on Reddit and reading threads about people trying to trigger their hypomania because that was the only time they felt like they were on top of the world. They had the energy to do things, and they
Hmm.
were like begging to trigger this thing that, well, frankly, science said is like a bad thing. And so moving from that Western like version of, you know, how I experience emotions to human design, like that's a gift. I have these highs and lows so that I can
Uh-huh.
decide from a neutral standpoint. Like you never should, like the motto for people with emotional authority is there's no truth in the now. So
Ah,
at a minimum, it's always recommended that you sleep on like really big decisions, not like what to have for breakfast in the morning. There's
right.
4 major areas, friendships, relationships, if you're about to move, and then career. So like the really big decisions, you should at least give yourself a night to sleep on it if you have emotional authority. If you can give yourself even more time to really go through all the waves, like that's even better, because what happens, for generators and energy types. So I'm sure we'll get there at some point. But for generators, we have a defined sacral. So that's our like life force energy. So our sacral will naturally have a response right in the moment. Do I
Uh-huh.
have the energy for this? Yes or no? It's very quick. And so when you have emotional authority, it's just checking in with yourself to make sure
Mm.
it's still a yes, even when you're in your high, even when you're in your low. And so deciding from that emotionally neutral standpoint. And so that's a
Mm.
gift, because we live in a society that's like, I need answers now. I give it to me quick.
Microwave,
Instant.
yes.
Yes. And it's like,
Yes.
no, I actually need to decide from emotion, like an emotionally neutral standpoint. And so you're empowered with human design as I have emotional authority. I need time to decide, versus
Mm.
bipolar 2, which is like, oh, let me just give you these drugs so that you can balance out the hormones in your brain and make you less depressed, which, let's be frank, antidepressants don't make you, well, for some people, they don't make you antidepressed. They just
Mm-hmm.
numb you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Got you.
those are a few of the gifts.
Okay. 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 So emotional authority, I like that term, and I like how you explained it. So to me, it sounds like you are taking control of being able to pause and
Yeah,
sit in something and really see how you feel about it as opposed to reacting. Right. So in the
exactly.
moment you may react because you're full of strong feelings, but after you take that pause and from a neutral position, you can think about it and feel about it and make a better decision. I
Exactly.
like that. Very
Exactly.
good. Very good. So the current focus of your business is what?
The current focus of my business, I actually just rewrote my vision statement a month ago now.
Okay.
But the current focus of my business is to help 1 million souls wake up to who they truly are over the next 5 years. And so
Okay.
the way that I'm doing that is through getting people to understand their unique gifts and their unique alignment. Like human design is a synthesis of a few different sciences: quantum physics, astronomy, astrology, Kabbalah, Tree of Life, the Chinese I Ching. So it's a synthesis of
Uh-huh.
a few goodies that will actually map out. I'm actually wearing me. That will
Okay.
actually map out your unique gifts and strengths. So once people understand like where their strengths are, where they're more vulnerable to believe or like take on the beliefs of those
Uh-huh.
around them, then they
Mm-hmm.
can be equipped with the knowledge and the sovereignty to decide for themselves, like, what do I believe versus what am I instructed to believe that is actually being detrimental to me? I'll give you
Mm.
the example of projectors. They don't have a defined sacral. And so what that means is they have to be really careful with how they use their energy, because they can burn out very quick. And so about 70% of the population are generators. either a manifesting generator or a generator. And so projectors, I believe the percentage is something like 15 to 20%. And so what that means is they're surrounded by people that have
Ah,
this energizer bunny, go, 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 go. And
uh-huh.
they try and keep up. And it's like, why can't I do what such and such does? Why can't
Ah,
I be the way that so and so is? And it's like, no, actually, being a projector is a gift. If it allows you to just wait for the invitation, as long as you're honing your craft, you're honing your skills, and you're being a vibrational match for the things that you're trying to attract to you, the invitations will come. And
mm,
so when you don't know that, it's like you get hard on yourself. So getting people to
right.
understand their unique gifts, sometimes it can go a little bit deeper, like generational trauma. We all have these wounds that have been
Yes,
passed down over lifetimes, but
yes.
especially like in generations. And so that's when I kind of bring in the gene keys so that we can start talking about things like karma and emotional intelligence and your biggest challenge in this incarnation. And then from there, I'm currently getting certified in being able to read the Akashic records, because even in my own journey, with all of my knowledge of my gifts and all of the contemplation that I do with gene keys, there are still things that it's like, why am I hitting this wall? And
Mm,
so what the Akashic records brings in is the Akashic records, you can think of it as like, some people call it a library or like a, resource Congress, like what is it, Library of Congress or something like
uh-huh,
that, where all of the
uh-huh,
records are. A better fit description is the internet, because as souls, in the fifth dimension, everything's interconnected. It's these little pockets of servers that connect and things like that. And so when you enter the Akashic records, your Akashic records, you can actually see the choices that you've made over different lifetimes. And you can start to see the negative choices that you've continued to make over these different lifetimes that have gotten you away from your unique soul blueprint. And you can start to correct that. You can start to make positive choices that are in alignment. So I actually had my Akashic records read on Monday,
uh-huh.
this past Monday, and I asked the question, why is it that I procrastinate when I am about to do something that is about to bring, like, I know it's about to bring me success. Like, the example I'll give right now is I'm a part of a book anthology, and I am in the company of some dynamite powerhouse women. We've got a brigadier general of 30 years. We've got someone who like created this amazing networking organization for these Black powerhouse women connections.
Uh-huh.
And I'm looking at me and I'm like, I went through a clinical trial. Um, and I'm like, and I'm starting to feel that imposter syndrome. And so sometimes I would have these moments of like writer's block, because I'm like, how do I make my story match their story? And so that's the example. So I asked the question, why is it that I procrastinate on the things that I know are going to bring me success? And through the reading, I was given the description of like, okay, think of it as, you're going up these steps. You're going up the steps. And then that last step is a little bit bigger and you can't quite see over it. So you kind of hesitate energetically. It feels like you're about to jump timelines, because you
Ah,
know that this decision, this next step, it's a quantum leap into where you want to be. And so energetically, it just feels like a lot. But if you just trust,
mm.
if you check in with that inner authority, if you check in with your spirit and you just trust in, like, I know this is good for me, you will be able to do it. And so it was one of those things where it was like, that makes so much sense. As a business coach, I was a business and mindset coach, is how I branded myself. And so I would say things like, feel the fear and do it anyway, because I knew the
Right,
science of the brain. We all know
right.
that, fear and excitement is two heads of this, the same coin. And so I would say things like, feel the fear and do it anyway. And so that served me for a time. But what I learned through the Akashic records, it gives it so much more meaning and purpose. It gives it like you're about to jump timelines. That's why
Yes.
you're hesitant. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, if that's the only reason why I'm hesitant, like, let's do this.
Right, right.
So that's what the combination of the tools that I use to help my clients really understand who they are,
Uh-huh.
and get rid of some of that fear and self-doubt that holds us back as humans in this
Right.
incarnation. And then, depending on what type of client you are, then we can talk about business, because I do still have that rabbit hole of knowledge and information. But we start
Okay.
first with you knowing without a doubt who you are and how you're meant to show up in this lifetime.
Okay. So when a client come to you, what are they usually coming to you asking for?
So, the person who did my Akashic records, I actually did his human design reading, and he wanted clarity on how to use his energy more efficiently. And he is a projector, so he doesn't
Okay.
have that same sacral battery. And he had also just come out of the closet. And so he was seeking some clarification on the love, identity, like direction piece. And
Uh-huh.
so what we did was we broke down his design, like this is how your energy is meant to be used as a projector. And then we dove into his in human design, this diamond shape in the middle. That's your G center, and it's, you can think of it as a magnetic monopole. It's a one-way magnet. If we are like these beings on a train track, it's the thing that pulls you along the train track. And so
Okay.
his wasn't defined, but he had some activations in his gates. And so we dove into those. We dove into those gifts, and he was able to see where he was living in the repressive versus the reactive of that gift
Ah,
because of his
okay.
conditioning. And I was able to ask him questions that allowed him to dive deeper and to speak his truth. Because for generators, yes or no questions are great. It's a sacral response thing. But for non-energy types, it's better for you to just really be a sounding board and to just hold space for them
Ah,
to speak their truth and hear it reflected back to them. So I was able to ask him some really powerful questions that got him in touch with, like, oh yeah, I could be doing more of this. I could be doing less of that. And
uh-huh.
so that's kind of the way when they first come, they're really seeking clarity on, like, why am I feeling this way? Because so many
Right.
of us, especially in the society that we live in, we feel wrong for being ourselves.
Mm, yes. I love that. That was very enlightening. And I think that is so true. I think it does start with how I'm feeling about me and what do I need to change to get to a place where I feel more fulfilled. You know, I feel like a lot of us are waking up to realize that we deserve to be fulfilled, right? We are recognizing that pain and that emptiness inside, and instead of just going on with the same routine, we're stopping to ask, is there something better? And if there is, how can I find it? You know, I think a lot of us are waking up to the seeker within
Yeah.
in this current time, which is beautiful to see. So it's great to have practitioners like yourself out there available as a resource to find those answers. And I love the way you said for different people, you ask questions differently because it spurs their response or the answers within, because we have all the answers within. The the whole issue is how to get them out. And I think that's what we know on some level. That's why we start seeking, because we're like, I know there is an answer, but
Yeah.
where is the answer? I don't know where the answer is. So let me reach out somewhere to try to find it, right? And
Yeah.
I like the way that you ask. It's not a one size fits all, because that's not, we're all unique. You know,
Yeah.
there's some generalities within us, but we are all unique. So I like the fact that you don't have a one size fits all
You
process
can't.
where these are the set of questions I ask to everybody and get this
Yeah.
information, but you understand, let me understand who this person is. And so what is your process for understanding that type of person? Um, if someone comes to you for the first time and they're like, I'm just not feeling fulfilled in my life. I feel like there's something different I should be doing, but I don't know where to start. How do you get to the point where you say to yourself, okay, now I understand what type of person this is, and I know how to approach helping them get to where they want to go? What does that look like?
Yeah. So again, I always start with the tools because as a one, I like things that have been proven.
Uh-huh.
And even when I first started diving into human design, I pulled, I I discovered human design fairly recently in my own healing journey. It was in October of last year. And
Okay.
it just really struck such a chord with me that I was like, this is something that, like, if I'm pulling everyone's chart and I'm saying these things and they're like, because what human design does is it doesn't help you like discover anything, but it confirms kind of what you already know, but
Okay.
society has made you think is wrong.
Ah,
So for example, like I'll give the example of the open ajna. So people who have an open ajna, they're meant to have this flexible mind. They're meant to play in the possibility of life.
uh,
The not self question that comes out of that center is, am I trying to convince everyone that I'm certain? We live
mm,
in a society that prizes the logical mind. And if you
uh-huh.
have intuitive gut feelings, it's like, well, how can you prove that that's what's about to happen? And so it's like, no, you're supposed, like, for some, like, even if you have definition in your ajna, you should never be making decisions from your mind. You should always be
Mm,
checking in with spirit, with your body. Like, what is it telling you? Because
right.
our minds, they are tricky beasts.
Yes,
They
they are.
that
They
inner
will
critic
fool
is
you.
always loud.
Like the saying says, don't believe everything you think.
Yeah,
Your mind would tell you some things. And we know this on a level because we know how we make up fears about stuff. We
yeah,
will lay out a whole novel about one event that has nothing to do with the reality of it, right? It has everything to do with who we are inside and what we've been through and how we reacted to how we interpreted certain things. But our mind will make up an entire novel about something, and we won't take a step or make an action, or like you said, just go out on faith because it feels like we should. We will let those thoughts in that dialogue take precedent and be like, yeah, that makes more sense than
yeah,
this. It's so we're so afraid of the unknown, right?
yeah.
So how do you help someone when they're in a spot like that? It's like, I feel like I should do this, but I don't know why. And, it doesn't really make sense. How do you help someone understand that it not making logical sense is not the criteria for whether you should do it or not?
So that brings in some of my other rabbit hole. So I've done a lot of investigation into Joe Dispenza's work, where he talks about
Yes.
how to reprogram your mind. You can actually heal your body with your thoughts, because the repetition of thoughts then create beliefs, and then these beliefs lead to these personality traits in us that like are not us. They're just
Yes.
all like, so depending on where they are, because I do work with some spiritually minded people who are like, oh, okay, I can get what I need from the tools that you're showing me. Like, okay, these are my gifts. Like I was made wrong for this, but if this is how I'm designed to be, then I'm going to step into that power. But for
Uh-huh.
some people, it's a little bit harder. And so I have to bring in, examples or other science that I've dove into, like Joe Dispenza's work, or even one person that's really been coming up a lot for me is Rhonda Byrne, the person who wrote
Okay.
Secret,
Mm-hmm.
and just the law of attraction and becoming a vibrational match to what you're trying to attract. So depending on where they are with like their beliefs and how deeply they are, like I said, I love resulting to and bringing in pieces that I've learned that have helped me, but making it relatable to them. So we have the tools, but then I also have some other rabbit holes that I've dove into that can also help, because like I said, this bag that I'm in right now,
Yes.
I've been through this journey. Like business coaching was like, okay, I'm fumbling around, but it's like, no, actually, this whole personal development piece, this whole working on yourself, personal growth, spiritual growth,
Yeah.
a thing or two.
Yes. Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. So, and what you're currently doing, what would you say has been has been your most impactful experience along this journey so far?
I would say the most impactful has been understanding myself on such a deep level, because through understanding myself with these tools, it was like when I first discovered them, I was in the thick of building my social media presence and doing a podcast and all of that stuff. And I was talking about business and how do you do AI, and when I found this, I was like, this is such a deep resonance in me. It's helping me gain the confidence that I didn't have. I'm like,
Mm.
it's one of my biggest challenges in this lifetime is to move from a place of external fixation into a place of internal groundedness.
Mm.
And I was like, this is helping me do that. It's helping me trust myself. And one of the things that I was seeing with so many of my business coaching clients was that they just didn't trust themselves. I'm like,
Ah,
you're amazing. What do you mean?
right.
You think if you do a master class, no one's going to show up? Of course, they're going
Mm.
to show up.
Uh-huh.
So, so the most impactful was that it helped me trust myself. And just I was talking, so there are 4 different energy types, 5 if you consider the hybrid an extra one, but one of the rarest energy types are reflectors. And so they have like all of their energy centers are open, they're white, they're undefined. And so what that means, for context, when you have a defined center, you have kind of like this energetic buffer. You have a
Uh-huh.
very defined and fixed way of dealing with the information that comes into that center. And you can kind of be like, okay, that's what you think, but I kind of feel this way about it. And you can kind of be firm in that. But your
Uh-huh.
open centers, they, when the energy comes in, it gets amplified in you. And so it can make you, and especially because it's not defined, so you don't have that fixed and reliable, like, okay, it was
Right.
this, but now it's this. And so that's when you seek the external for that validation of like, okay, this is right, or this, instead of like seeking within. And so reflectors, all of their centers are open. And I know how much my open centers hold me back,
Uh-huh.
especially that ego heart center, because the not self question that comes out of that is, do I think I have something to prove? And about 53% of the population has this center open. So
Ah,
pretty significant. And so, like I said, I know how much that affects me and like my own everyday life. So to imagine
right.
having no, like, and that's why their strategy is to wait a lunar cycle, because the consistency of the lunar cycle allows them to come to their truth over time. So when they're less than 1% of the population.
Oh,
So
wow.
they are really these rare beings. So when I come across reflectors, they oftentimes they have to give me like 30 seconds to a minute to just, one, I just found a unicorn. So I have to like be like, oh my gosh, you're a part of the 1%. And they're like, what does that mean? And I'm like, you are amazing. Because one of the things that I feel like, if they don't know that they're a reflector, they just feel like, why is stuff happening to me all the time? Why am I always having to learn stuff? Why is the universe against me? So when I first pull their chart and I'm like, is your time of birth right? Are you sure? Because like that's important. I'm like, are you
Right.
sure this is your time of birth? And then they confirm, like, yeah, I checked my birth certificate. I'm like, you are amazing. And then I start to tell them why. But I let them know right then that like you are amazing. Like you have these you have this gift to reflect back to your environment, like how that's their job in like society, civilization, is to reflect back how we're doing as an evolution. And
Mm.
so their environment is super important for them. If you put them in a room full of happy people, they're going to take all that energy and they're going to amplify it back out. But if you put them in a bad environment, like, I don't know, the first thing that popped in my head, like prison or something,
Uh-huh.
like they're gonna take in all of that energy and they're gonna reflect it back, and they might feel like miserable and they don't know why. And they
Right.
might, again, with emotion, like for me, with emotional authority, I'm like, I have to come to my clarity over time. But like I can sleep on it, I can wait a week.
Right.
Lunar cycles are like 28 to 29 days. So I know the pressure that they feel to make decisions really quickly. So it's
Right.
like just helping. I don't remember how I got on this tangent about reflectors, but just helping them
No.
see their amazingness.
Yeah, I was asking you what was and most impactful.
Yeah.
And so you're telling me that reflectors, and that must be liberating for them to realize you're like 1% of
Yeah.
the population, and then they understand instantly. That's why I feel so strange. Most
Yeah.
people are not like me.
Yeah.
The chances of me being around people like me and feeling like I fit in are, almost impossible. So once you get past, I mean, that has to be like big, a big wall to break down for them just to realize that and be like, okay, let me start from there.
Yeah.
I
Like
love
I am
that.
different. I am unique. Like it's one thing to
Yes.
know that you're different. And obviously society can sometimes make you wrong for that. But to
Yes.
be empowered, like I'm
Right.
less than 1%. Like
Right.
I am a unicorn.
Yeah. And there's a purpose to it. There's a purpose to how I feel things. There's a
Yes.
purpose to that because you just explained it so beautifully how they let us know how society is doing because they reflect,
Yeah.
what's going on. So I love that. Great, great information. So in your journey within your business, who would you say has been like a mentor to you in your process, or have you had any one mentor in your process?
Yeah, for sure. I've had several mentors. Um, and before I found human design, I held on to some mentors longer than I should have because I was like, but they said do this. They said it should work, right? Proven methods and strategies. Like this should work for me. But I would say the most, Candy, you're about to get a shout out. I would say the most impactful mentor that I've had has been Candy Barone. I was in a place where I was trying my hardest to figure out how human design fit into what I was already doing with business coaching and leadership development. And so on a whim, I just did a Google search and I was like, I don't even remember what I searched, but Candy had an article on LinkedIn. She loves to write. And so she has a newsletter on LinkedIn all about leadership, and she brings in these human design elements.
Uh-huh.
And um, I at that time, I was not new to networking. Like you introduce me to someone, I'm gonna shoot my shot. I'm gonna be like, do you want to have a
Uh-huh.
one-to-one? You want to have a virtual coffee? And she was open to it. And so we booked either like a 30-minute session. It might have been an hour, whatever we booked for, it went over it. Whatever, like we were just talking, we were jamming. And her and I's energy, our birthdays are a day apart and several years apart.
Okay.
They're a day apart and several years apart. And so she was able to explain to me, even though she's a manifesting generator, so her throat is defined, she has a very fixed, reliable voice, and my throat is completely open. I do not have that, but I'm starting to embrace the gift in that because I'm told Oprah has an open throat. And that's why she's
Ah,
able to connect with so many different like
right.
variations of her guests. And so we're just talking and jamming. And I gained so much from that conversation. I was like, let me sign up for your newsletter. Let me definitely connect with you on LinkedIn. And so I went to one of her relationship classes, and I learned, that was when I learned, like really learned the difference between like how you talk to a generator, like an energy type, and how you talk to
Ah,
like a non-energy type with the open-ended questions and things like that. And even in that workshop, like she is so much like me. Like I love to give information. Like even though marketing says like don't overget, like I can't
right,
help it. Like
right.
it just pours out of me, and she's no
Yeah.
different. And that workshop was no different. And so she had sent an email out a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, my prices are, yeah, no, it was in June. And she was like, my prices are about to go up. I've realized the value that I'm putting in my own journey, and I'm about to raise my rates. And so if you want to get in at the current rates, then these are the options, these are the links. And so I was having some trouble kind of deciding between like which reading I wanted to do. Because one thing about human design is like I can know all the information about myself, but to be able to see it objectively
Mm,
and actually like I needed a little help with that, because I'm like, how
uh-huh.
do I make it all just work together?
Right,
And so I was
right.
having some trouble deciding between packages, and I reached out to her and I was like, which one is this? And she was like, well, this, you'll get this, and this, you'll get this. But I recommend this bundle, this leadership bundle. So it's a 3-session bundle. And the things that I've learned about myself over these 2 sessions, because
Uh-huh.
we still have a third one next Tuesday where I'm about to really get honed in on some of the things that came out of my success codex, and how to really bring that into my branding and my messaging, and how to, like, in business coaching, we're always taught, niche for now, niche, 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 niche. And
Right.
like where some people encourage like industry or even gender, those things never really fit for me, because it's like, yes, I love helping women, especially with
Mm-hmm.
all of the knowledge that I know about like the fertility awareness method and the different phases of our cycles and how that affects our human body, like
Uh-huh.
estrogen and progesterone. But like there are some guys who like they are open to the spiritual, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
help them too. So being, so like women this, women this, and then
Uh-huh.
like having the guys just wonder, like, I want, oh, that's cool, I wonder if she can help me. Like it didn't fit. So we're about to talk about like qualifiers versus actual labels. So like creative minds, people who are soul led, like things like that. So I
Right.
would say that she's been the most impactful for sure, because she's 6 or 7 years into the experiment. So she's gone through some of the things that I'm going through right now. Like we both have emotional authority. We're both have a lot of the same activations in our chart. We're different, obviously,
Right.
but there's a lot of similarity there where she's able to give me guidance. One of the best things that she told me is just because you can
Mm.
doesn't mean you should. And that
Mm.
is something like, because I know so much, I'm like, I could
Right.
do this video editing thing. I could do this thing.
Right.
And then
Right.
I'm like, why don't I have any time for anything?
Right. Exactly. And that struggle is real. Not just in the sense of spreading yourself thin, but in the sense of really choosing, like you said, your business plan in the next 5 years is to help 1 million souls over the next 5 years. Choosing what you're really going to focus on, because uh, I think sometimes we are surprised that we are multi-talented, or that we have multiple passions. So we think, that feels good, and that feels good, and that feels good. So that must mean I need to do all of those, right?
Right.
As opposed to, okay, what's the primary thing I want to do? And let me give that my all and
Yes.
get that going really good. Then if I want to spin another plate over here, I can. But if I start off spinning 5 plates, they're all going to crash down,
Yes.
right? And then I'm
Exactly.
going to lose confidence in myself, because it was just the way I chose to do it. Not that I don't have those skills. So I love that you shared that. So in looking at your business journey. You shared a lot with us. It's been beautiful. How you transition, how you pivoted from one type of business to another to be more in tune with your gifts and what's fulfilling to you. So next for you is your 5-year plan. What do you do when you feel like, because one of my passions is making sure that we as Black women understand the necessity of taking care of ourselves in a sacred sense, not just a day at the spa or going out to lunch, but having a sacred practice that's daily, right? If it's 5 minutes a day, consistent, not just when everything is going wrong. Okay, now I need to stop and meditate, but having a system that we manage and maintain. So share with us what's your system of management and maintenance of that sacred self-care is for you.
Of course, in complete transparency, I am still developing it.
Good.
But I am a lot closer than I ever have been, because we live in a society that's like, oh, you should have this amazing morning routine where you go to the gym and then you do this thing and then you read for a little bit and then you meditate and then you start your day. And it's like, that was exhausting. Actually, it didn't feel rejuvenating. And so even in knowing, like, for me, I look for practices that I can ground in, and I'm still, one of my channels is the 515. So it's the gate of extremes. It's also the gate of the wild heart, which is like march to the beat of your own drum. And then it's the 5 is this internal flow. Like, I know what an internal flow is. And obviously you can see how the two of them kind of battle, because one is like, I want these fixed patterns and routines. And then this other one is like, but this was awesome. And then this was also awesome. And so it's like, they kind of battle each other out. And so for me, just knowing that I need to ground every day. So I've been doing different things that help me ground. So I really want to get into a practice of yoga and really connecting with, like, my body in that way, and breathing, and just really being in my being, especially knowing now that yoga goes deeper than just the poses.
Right.
It's the actual connection. It's the asanas and the yamas and the all of it. But I also need to give myself grace, because sometimes yoga's not going to happen every day.
Right.
So now I have these crystals that I ground with at night. It's crazy, because to think of old logical brain business version me versus now, like, I remember looking at people with their crystals and I'm like, so you're telling me you hold this rock and just feel grounded? Oh, okay. But now that I'm in this place where I am a vibrational match for the things that are going to serve me, when I went, my birthday was July 11th, and I went to a crystal shop on the way back, because we went out of town, and I had a list, thanks to one of my other mentors, of crystals that she recommended. And so rose quartz was one of them. And I remember hearing about rose quartz. I know people like it, but I really didn't understand. But when I picked up, like, I read the benefits and I picked up the rose quartz, I felt something change. Like, I felt the relaxation and the self-love, and it made me feel good. Like, I didn't want to stop holding it. And so I now have these crystals that help me. So, like, if I don't do yoga, then I'm gonna use my crystals, and I wear them often. I mentioned that I have been doing a lot of work with Rhonda Byrne, the person who wrote The Secret. At one point, I was in her 28-day gratitude challenge. She has this book called The Magic. And so every day, I was doing things, picking up rocks or putting something on a dollar bill and looking at it throughout the day, just to really be intentional and just have gratitude. So it's a lot of different things, because my design requires me to not have one fixed thing, but it's one overall theme of just how
Got
do you
it.
ground, how do you be with yourself?
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. I'm glad you share that because everyone has their system and it's really about finding what works for you, finding what helps you feel better. So tell me again, how did you come across knowing what crystal was a match for you?
Recommendations. I
Okay.
talk every I'm a business partner in an organization called Your Alignment Project. And
Uh-huh.
so the head of that organization, we knew each other for months before I actually became a business, as you should.
Mhm.
But we have gotten into a practice of meeting every Wednesday. And so she has a completely open solar plexus. And so what that means is that she's an empath. So whether I have on that mask that says I'm okay or not,
Right.
she's like, something's going on with you. I felt something last night, like your guides told me to get your cards. And so I'm like, okay, what did they say? And so before I went on my birthday trip, we had met and she recommended, she was like, and this is going to be good for you. So I had the privilege
Okay.
of someone being like
Right.
recommending things because
Right.
otherwise, I don't know what I'm looking for.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, Diamond, we are coming to the end of our podcast, and you have been just a wonderful, beautiful, bright light for us today, sharing so much great information with the audience. I know they were taking notes. So, before we close out, I have a couple of questions I want to ask you, just fun questions. And then I want to make sure that you tell our audience how they can connect with you. So we'll start with the questions. The first one is, what was your favorite childhood game?
Ooh, Uno.
Ah. Second question is, what would be your dream place to travel to and why?
Bali. Bali is definitely on my bucket list because I've just heard so many of the indigenous practices that are done there. I really want to experience. I think that I really want to experience what it's like to live in one of those tree houses. Like that might be
Ah,
like if I'm Airbnb in it, that might be a one night thing because I also
right.
have air conditioning. Um,
Right.
but just I really feel like connecting with some of the practices there, like if I went to a Bali retreat and really just connecting with like plant medicine and things like that, like I know the me that went to Bali would be a
Would be
lot
different.
different than the me that leaves Bali.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's what travel should be like.
Yes.
Okay, the next question. What is your favorite food or meal?
Mm, my favorite food, my automatic response is cookies. Because
A girl after my own heart.
nice warm cookies and milk. Like it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
technically a meal. And
Yes.
don't tell my 7-year old, but it's definitely cookies.
Okay. What was your favorite teacher in
Mm,
any grade, any level, college, school, and why? Who
um,
was your favorite teacher?
who was my favorite
Yeah.
teacher? I honestly, it's tough because like there are a couple teachers that come to mind, but for me, especially like going through being removed from my mom's care and put into child and family services, like my guidance counselors have always been like
Mm.
and so when I was removed, I met my dad and I went to go live with him as he is my legal guardian. And I was with him for my junior and senior year of high school. My guidance counselor, I would start my day off. Like the bus would drop us off and I would just go to her office. And like, that's how I would start my day. I'd be like, this is what's going on. Like, here's, and she was just there to
Nice.
hold space so much so that we still talk to this
Oh,
day. Like
nice.
I go to my old high school and I talk to the entrepreneurship class from time to time. So I get to
Oh,
even see her then.
That's amazing. I love that. That's beautiful to hear. Okay, Diamond, thank you so much for being with us. I will let you close out by telling my audience where they can find you.
I appreciate you. So my website is diamonddripconsulting.com, and I strongly encourage you go there and pull your free human design chart so that you can know what your gifts and strengths are.
Okay, I'm going to be doing that for myself, just
Yes.
so you know.
Okay.
Are you anywhere else on social media?
I am everywhere on social
Okay,
media,
so
and
they can
they're
find
all
you
on, yeah, they're all
via
on my website.
Diamond Drip, looking for just search for Diamond Drip, and there you'll
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. So
Wonderful.
I've done really great at this. If you Google Coach Diamond Drip, I will pop up.
Oh, good. Oh, good. That's good to know. Beautiful. Well, thank you again for being with us. I hope you come back and visit us again sometime, and you enjoy the rest of your day. Be blessed.